The question we'll be answering in this video is, when do I start my SAT or ACT preparation? This is really two questions. When do I plan my SAT or ACT preparation, and when do I actually begin? The planning stage is ideally during sophomore year, when you can really look ahead to the next few years and figure out which test you want to take and when you want to take it. So during this planning stage, you want to figure out what are the best 4 months in which to prepare for your exam, and then figure out which is a better test for you, SAT or ACT, which we answer in another video on this site. You also want to figure out if you're going to pursue group class tutoring, private tutoring, or just work on your own. Now, when to begin your actual tutoring depends on your after-school schedule more than anything else. Sports, drama, debate, music, these can all take up a lot of time. Sports is usually the limiting factor, as it keeps students after school until 6 p.m., after which you have homework. So these are not the ideal months during which to study for an SAT or ACT. During your planning process, try to find 4 months when you are free after school. You want to plan to take a test after the first 2 months to get some practice in the exam setting, as well as get some feedback on what you've been working on during the first 2 months, and then take a second attempt at the end of the 4 months, which will hopefully be your best and final score. We advise starting early with math review over the summer between sophomore and junior year if you have some trouble with the math basics, with Algebra 1 or Algebra 2 or geometry basics. The summer between sophomore and junior year can be a good time to begin with that, as well as vocabulary if you are taking the SAT. Vocabulary is, of course, innumerable, so studying over the summer when you don't have a lot of other schoolwork is ideal. Why the March date is not great to start. A lot of students will take the SAT for the first time in March of junior year. This is not ideal because everybody takes the test twice. So if you take the test in March and then take it again in May, you now are running very close up to the June subject tests. Now, the SAT subject tests are a different matter, and those are also explained in a different video on this site, which you can check out at your own leisure. But the March date is usually not a great time to take your first exam. Also, many students ask me if they can take the test once in the spring and then once in the fall. This is also not ideal because any preparation you do before that first test could well be forgotten before the second time that you might plan to take it in fall of senior year. So we strongly advise that you plan to find a 4-month span during your junior year when you can take 2 exams, whether they're the SAT or the ACT. Now, a few specific schedules that my students have followed in the past based on their sports schedules. If you're a 3-sport athlete, you might consider starting over the summer when you have a little bit more time, and then taking the October and December SATs, or the September and October ACTs. If you're a student who has sports in the winter and the spring, you also want to start a little early and perhaps take the November and January SAT exams or the October and the December ACT exams. If you're a student who has sports in the fall and the spring, perhaps football and lacrosse or soccer and baseball, you may take the SAT in January and March, or the ACT in December and February. If you're a student who is in sports in the fall and the winter, you might consider the March and May SAT or the April and May ACT. Now, as I said before, the March date is not the ideal date on which to start because if you take the SAT in March and May, those subject tests are looming in June. So if you do take that path, if you are a fall and winter athlete, and you take the first test in March, the second in May, you must be aware that the subject tests are coming just about 3 to 4 weeks after your May SAT exam, and you'll have a quick turnaround and need to study very hard in those last 3 weeks of May to be prepared for your June subject tests. If you are a recruited athlete, the entire schedule is moved up quite a bit, as a lot of coaches will want you to take an SAT or ACT during your sophomore year in order to acquire some scores for them to look at. This has been a video about when should I start my prep for the SAT or ACT. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.